hello. Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, no problem.
Oh, great. Something was strange here in the UI.
I
How
I
are,
always find I
okay.
always find the starting the space and like navigating it from mobile always a bit awkward.
Yeah, when are they going to finally release the desktop version that will work well?
Yeah, 2034.
I hope to live that long. So, how are you doing?
Very good, really good. How are you?
Oh, great, actually. Yeah, very interesting week. A lot of interesting events as usual to talk about.
Yeah, busy, busy, busy week.
First of all, we have completed our hard fork, which was, as always, kind of stressful for me. I hate hard forks,
Yeah,
but it was good, uneventful, as we love it.
yeah. When it comes to hard forks, no news is good news for the most part. And as with the ones before it, everything went smooth. The blocks
Absolutely.
rolled over.
Yep. As we're joking in Beam, worst case, we're getting a Coindesk article. Yeah, Coindesk only writes about Beam when something bad happens. So today we're going to talk about security and hacks that happened this week, quite a few of them. But I think we shall start with your story. You have an amazing story.
I do, and usually, if I have an amazing story, it's never massively positive and usually not good. So, but this one's not a huge bad thing and kind of interesting and maybe hopefully not useful for someone in the future if they have similar. I will keep it relatively short. So, I was speaking with my girlfriend yesterday, and she was trying to do something with Ethereum on like a mobile wallet, and it wasn't working, and she couldn't. She wanted to like delist the NFT that she had a price on OpenSea for, or something like this, and it wasn't working. And this is where I came up with a great plan. Uh, and my plan was to just add. She was doing it all on her mobile, and I suggested to do it on like a computer, mainly because this is how I do it, and so it's far more familiar with me. And of course, this required to enter in a seed phrase. I sent her the links for MetaMask to download it on her Mac. She did that. And then she entered her seed, and then she put through a bunch of transactions. And I'm not 100% sure where, but somewhere along the lines, I think it was a OpenSea phishing link that she just got off Google or something like this. Long story short, she put her seed phrase in, and then the hacker, I don't know if these people are called hackers, but let's roll with that. Obviously, moved the moved the NFTs out of the wallet into a different address, and then there was like, and also moved some Ethereum. So when the Ethereum itself was moved, gave me like I'm not very clever at any of this stuff, but it gave me a clue that they obviously had like the seed phrase rather than she had just signed a bad transaction for approving the NFTs themselves. And then there was like a $300 or $400 worth of tokens that the person just left in there. Obviously not worth much, so they just left them there. And she asked me to help and move them, so I jumped on my computer and put her seed phrase in on my computer and started moving the tokens to a new wallet with a related seed phrase, and so it was like obviously out of the grasp of the hacker. And then I suddenly thought, I wonder, I don't know what I thought really, but I thought, oh, maybe I check if the attacker had like sent the NFTs to a different address on the same seed phrase, like a generated address accessible from the same seed. And to my surprise, this is what they had done. So I think by the time I did this, they had like sold one of the NFTs for Ethereum and then transferred the Ethereum out of the new address. But I was able to grab the rest of the NFTs and tokens and transfer them all out. But I was very, very like surprised that they went to all this effort with a phishing site and this, and then they sold one, and they were just using like a an address that was accessible to the person that they stolen from.
Wow.
Yeah, this was my first thought. I mean, when it first happened, I thought about doing it, and I thought surely they wouldn't do that. And then I thought, well, it takes 2 seconds to spin up a new address, and it's usually, at least with MetaMask, I think it usually spins up like the same second address all the time. I don't know what that's called. Like,
Hmm. Yeah, it's really strange. First of all, I'm glad like you were able to get most of them back. It's
yeah,
definitely good news. But so it's interesting. Like how difficult is it to report NFT stolen? Like is there even such a thing like to report NFT stolen to
I think
OpenSea?
I've seen it being done with like the Bored Ape people, and my girlfriend kind of said that, and I mean, I should have said this earlier. My girlfriend is very like, she doesn't do so much with crypto. She enjoys it and finds it interesting and this kind of stuff, but obviously doesn't spend so much time on it. And she suggested that we report them, and I said, nah, it's gone. Like everything's gone. And I don't know why, but I feel like reporting NFTs to OpenSea and this kind of stuff is, even if like they blocked it and this kind of thing, almost like beyond the point. And by the time that we would have been able to report it, it had already been like the one that was stolen had already been sold in any case.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, well, so these kind of phishing operations on NFTs, they become like I think every week we hear like a couple of stories about this, and some of them kind of start with YouTube or Discord or some medium of communication used, by these NFT uh, kind of communities, and then people tend to trust the links that are there, and then they kind of in some way expose their holdings, and But yeah, so obviously entering a seed phrase, like for me. Like when I enter a seed phrase, it's like I don't know. I close all the windows, I disconnect the Wi-Fi, like the whole house goes into a lockdown. But obviously, I don't do it very often. But yeah, like it's scary. It's scary every time. It's scary,
Yeah,
right?
and it should be like it should be something you're almost never doing, and if you are doing it, you're very scared.
Yeah. No, and like if I'm on Windows machine, I'm like, what if I have some, spyware installed that copies like everything I ever like paste and sends it somewhere. By the way, there were some stories that hackers, they find keys in all kinds of backups and in all kinds of like repositories. Like they scan basically everything they can get
Yeah.
their hands on to find some seed phrases.
Mm. And I think like maybe less relevant now, but I remember like ages ago, and there was someone that was combing like less random seed phrases or something like this. They kind of, and maybe it was to do with like how the wallet itself generated the seed phrases, and it wasn't a good way of doing such, and like drained a bunch of wallets that they just kind of guessed, given how this wallet was generating seed phrases, they kind of drained those wallets.
Ah, oh man, yeah, that's really
Yeah.
bad. So, like some people this week were much less fortunate than yourself. And I'm talking about the Harmony Bridge hack, which was kind of hacked, let's say, the old way. It's not like somebody broke into the blockchain. They just got their hands of two of the five multi-sig keys. I don't know exactly how it happened, but it doesn't have anything to do with the blockchain. It has everything to do with operational security, which was probably a little bit um, inadequate, to say the least. And they got away with $100
Yeah.
million.
And like what I consider the worst part of this is that they had they had like a warning like a month or a couple of months ago from the like Axie Infinity guys. The exact same kind of attack was used where they had like a 2 out of 7 or 3 out of 7 multi-sig for the bridge and it got hacked for 600 million. Like, surely, if you are running a similar situation or a similarly attackable setup for a bridge, surely after that situation, you would think that maybe you'd be kind of looking at how you're doing it and how you can improve it, but apparently not.
No, it's like always, oh, it's probably not going to happen to us,
Yeah,
kind of thing.
which in crypto is like an incredibly blase attitude to have, and will probably lead to something like we see.
Yeah, like, so there are like basically two main things. Like one is awareness, and I'm really surprised. Like if you go, maybe it's me, like maybe I didn't find it, but if you're like looking for information about crypto, you kind of find a lot of things about protocols and about projects and about tokens. You rarely find this kind of comprehensive, I don't know, material instructs you how to work with your wallet, how to keep everything safe, how to use even the most basic things like password managers, how not to install all kinds of weird extensions that you don't know about, or just connect everything to your wallet without thinking about it. So I think it's needed, like more education about the subject. It
Yeah,
could be good.
definitely. And it's such like it's such a strange like if you step back and put yourself in the shoes of like someone that's never done like crypto stuff, then it's a very like steep learning curve. I mean, one of the things like after this whole phishing incident had happened, my girlfriend said to me like, "Hey, I have the like she'd given me the seed phrase and all this, and then she said, "Do you need my password for MetaMask?" And I thought, like, well, I mean, a great question, but not because not because I need it, because like that kind of demonstrated to me at least that she and what I assume is a bunch of people still don't quite grasp the whole concept of self custody and how easy it is for stuff to go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not simple, like I understand, because uh, some time ago, maybe a year and a half ago, something like that, I did a small. It was just kind of a uh, what do you call it? Donation kind of thing. I did a free course, like several meetings with some people, like workers of some company, about generic like internet
Okay, yeah.
security. The most basic things like how to store your passwords, how to enter your passwords, how to check that this website, like let's say you go to your bank's website and you have to check that there is this kind of, lock icon in the top left corner that it's actually HTTPS and you didn't get to some phishing site, how to check the certificate and all that. And I realized like how foreign and how strange all of these things that I'm talking about are to people. They have a computer at home, usually one machine, and all their kids are playing games constantly on this machine. And they install kinds of games, free games from the internet, and there is nothing free on the internet. If you install some free game, you have to be super careful not to install bunch load of other unwanted software with it. And they come to the computer, they access their bank accounts, they pay bills, and like when they get to crypto, they do the same. And I'm like, listen, people, you have to take these things seriously. It's called a personal computer for a reason. It's personal. Buy another computer for your kid, something cheaper, and let them play with
Yeah.
it. But it's definitely, yeah,
And
it's definitely very difficult to
yeah,
explain.
and even I kind of fall into this as well. Like I'm on my computer all the time, and I almost never download anything because I'm shit scared and whatever. And also I don't have anything to download. But I often see those like pop-ups about like, oh, you have a virus, or like download this latest Mac cleaner to get rid of junk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'm always like, oh yeah, I need to do
Yeah,
that. And then hold on, maybe not.
definitely not.
Yeah,
Yeah, they will keep your Mac clean from any funds they can
yeah,
access on
yeah,
from this Mac. By the way, recently I saw here and there kind of announcements that Chainalysis and several other companies are actually opening like hotlines and like departments for these kind of situations, so that if you are attacked or if you like lost your funds or you're still
yeah,
being hacked, at least you will have somebody to talk to, or like, because in many cases, just like in this case, right? Like, let's say if your girlfriend did not have you to consult with or to try to recover it, like all of these things would have been eventually
yeah,
lost.
exactly. And especially relevant for the most important people, which it's relevant for is like the people that are new to crypto. They probably don't know so many people and don't have so many people to ask and this kind of stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that it's actually critical, and I shared another link in our Twitter Space thread. Um, just something that worth reviewing. That MetaMask revealed that there are some issues with some specific browsers. So just make sure you're not using those, or like you're safe in
Yeah,
this
this
department.
is true.
Um, and I also shared, I think, the Harmony breach hack, which is once again an important story to kind of take heed. So bridges are a problem. Like bridges are always this centralized, point where a lot of money is being stored usually. Um, and yeah, it's very very vulnerable to these kinds of attacks, right? Especially it's not a blockchain attack. They just get somehow these two. So I think that at least some of the protections should be built into the bridge in terms of how much money you can withdraw at which rate and things like that. So I think it's important to consider adding those parameters as well, and we will definitely do so in our bridges. But it's always scary. I
Yeah,
agree.
the craziest thing about like not the Harmony one, but the one I mentioned earlier, like the Axie Infinity Ronin bridge,
Hmm.
it didn't get noticed for like 6 weeks or something, and it was
What?
yeah, it
Really?
was like 600 million. Now that I feel like there's too many sixes. There was something like 600 million stolen, but it was like weeks before anyone noticed that it had happened.
Hmm. Unbelievable. So, okay, so like people, how can we put it? Just do not enter your seed phrases in some things you
Yeah,
don't know. Be very
yeah.
careful.
This is the moral of the story.
Cool. So moving on. By the way, it's somewhat related, I think. But, not exactly, but there was this uh, kind of piece of news that CZ from Binance published his views about bailout and leverage. Did
Yeah.
you see that? I think it's a very good read. Highly recommended. And it's kind of like interesting because we're entering this different type of financial, let's say, institutions, and like Binance is hugely, you know, popular and used centralized exchange. Um, Quite an important player in this market, I would say. So yeah, it was interesting to me to read this
Well,
article.
I didn't like read the article in full. What was his general like thought on the bailouts that we've been seeing from the likes of FTX, Sam, and the Goldman? I forgot what it's called, Goldman Sachs, whatever it is, or JP Morgan.
Yeah, Goldman is raising funds to buy out some of the Celsius
Yeah,
assets, which is kind of okay in my opinion because it's like the bigger sharks are eating the smaller and failed sharks. In all these kind of tests and down market situations, it's always eventually kind of goes to how much money and tolerance you have to withstand these shorts and withstand this. It's all about liquidity,
yeah.
basically, right? And this is kind of interesting in my opinion. Let's see how this story develops because it's still, I think, an unfolding story.
Yeah, yeah, like although a lot of attention is like moved away from it for now, I think that it'll take a lot of time for like the situation, which is a crazy situation, for it to completely like unfold and sort itself out, however that may be.
Uh, One of the things that kind of influence that I think is how easy it is. Like how easy is it to get leverage,
Yeah,
right? Um, I don't remember if we talked about it the last time, but or just don't remember. But there was this case where somebody used a flash loan to attack a protocol that used an oracle based on a pool. So there was a pool with two kind of tokens, and the value of that pool was. So yeah, we did
yeah,
talk about it last time. So this is an example of something which is like from one side is like relatively complicated to execute, but when you manage to execute that, you get kind of very cheap uh, leverage, right? You get a lot of money that you borrow and then return the same transaction. And this is definitely something that we should be aware of and like take care in terms of like designing those protocols. Because if it's easy to get leverage, if it's easy to get these funds out of basically nowhere and then return them back, and at the same point use them to kind of manipulate some oracle or some protocol, uh, there is very little you can do against it. Like in regular markets, it might be more difficult to get money, kind of sums you need to even try to conduct these attacks. But in crypto, sometimes it's much easier to get this leverage. And it's a point that I don't know how much like it is actually used, but I think it's not a widely discussed issue. Like when you're designing a protocol, like how easy it is to gain when you get like huge amounts of money and then you move them around a little bit, kind of trading and then bring it back. So that's kind of an important point to always think about.
yeah. Especially like the amount of leverage you can get for how much liquidity there is like in crypto and how volatile it is. Bitcoin is the barring like stable coins, I guess it's the least volatile for the most part of crypto. But even Bitcoin has had days where it goes up 60% when Xi Jinping is tweeting about it, and down 60% when everyone realizes COVID's gonna do its thing, and you can like lever up fairly like easily. I don't know what it's like now, but I remember I remember a couple of years ago you could just log into BitMEX and access to 100 times. Obviously, it didn't last very long, but I mean, surprising that these kind of products are available to anyone, and at that time was before they had issues in the US and didn't even need KYC and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And also the liquidity is not distributed obviously equally among other like among different protocols and different chains. And you can always look for this kind of weaker part,
Yeah.
weaker pool that has less liquidity and is easier to manipulate. And the same obviously goes to blockchains. And one thing that I was thinking quite a lot about this week, did you see that announcement of to
Yeah,
Cosmos?
so they're releasing like version 3 or maybe version 4, I don't know, version 4,
4.
and
Mm-hmm.
go, like abandoning, maybe this is a bad word, but I'm gonna do like a Coindesk, my Coindesk article title, abandoning Ethereum for Cosmos.
Yeah, so it was very interesting to me for two reasons. First of all, so Cosmos is a separate ecosystem. It's proof of stake, and it's regarded as one of the best implementations of proof of stake. It's called Tendermint. And the idea of Cosmos is to have a separate blockchain for each application, right? So we have this hub and spoke architecture where different blockchains can communicate with each other using these hubs, and each blockchain is kind of running one or few applications using a proof of stake uh, algorithm, and obviously having its own set of validators. And like I'm not a Cosmos expert yet, but the thing here is that not all kind of validators are equal, like in terms of trust and in terms of power and in terms of decentralization, obviously. But the reason why they're doing that is in my opinion, mostly like financial, because when you're on Ethereum, in addition to all of the other kind of problems that you have with speed and all that, but it's also very costly, right? You pay a lot, your users pay a lot in fees, and these fees go to Ethereum miners. And you say, wait a minute, like when we're small, when we're a new protocol, obviously it's not an issue. But when we become as big as DYDX or Uniswap, right? Uh, you basically like have a huge huge ecosystem of your own, your users, and you generate a lot of transactions, and it kind of makes sense that these fees go to your validators instead of to Ethereum miners in some regard.
Yeah.
But at the time, it kind of like the main benefit of Ethereum is that all of these and like I'm putting the miner extractable value issues aside for a second, they provide kind of very strong protection in terms of the consensus, right? They provide like huge hashing power and computing power to protect your network. While what you're doing when you're moving each protocol to a separate network, which is governed by a set of validators, which can be different between protocols, is a little bit similar to what used to be called sharding, the idea of sharding, that you have kind of separate shards, where the problem was that each shard is weaker than the entire system. And except for some approaches like Cadena, for example, that are trying to create these mechanisms that strengthen across the shards, you're basically saying, listen, each protocol is like every man for himself, right? Like you trade on Uniswap, you're protected by one set of validators. You trade on DYDX, and maybe I don't understand something, so that's why, like, if you know something about it, please let me know as well. If there are any kind of cross blockchain strengtheners for these consensus issues, because otherwise it's basically taking every chain and then everything moves through bridges between applications, and bridges, as we know, are not kind of the strongest point. So we will see how it plays out, but I'm concerned for this part, right? For how strong the validators actually are to run these individual networks all by themselves.
This makes sense. Like, and I think it's really interesting. Like, it's very interesting to see what DYDX has done in terms of like abandoning, a very bad word, and I don't think it's simply applicable, but like leaving Ethereum for Cosmos. And I like at a guess, I think that this is the first like big protocol on on Ethereum that has sort of done this transition. So it'll be interesting to see it play out. I don't know almost anything about Ethereum, and I know even less about Cosmos. But like when I heard the news, my initial feeling was that with Cosmos and their kind of chain thing, uh, was that at least from like a layman's perspective, is that it would allow them like more customizability. Not sure if that's a word, but enable them to,
It is now.
yeah, it is now. Uh, enable them to better like customize the chain for their needs and their users' needs and this kind of thing, which kind of, I mean, I've seen a lot of talk on Twitter and this kind of stuff about like the theory of like dApp chains and that each dApp will have their own chain and this kind of thing. And personally, I think it's like interesting, but if you have like each dApp on its own chain, it's very different to how I imagine it playing out, and that the dApps, like many of dApps users and like volume is coming from another dApp rather than like individual users in this kind. Whereas if it's kind of siloed on its own chain and you have to deposit into that chain and then you lever up and long or you short or whatever, and then you you win or you lose and then you withdraw. To me, it seems like from user experience point of view, it's more like a centralized exchange. Like you can deposit to Binance and long or short, or you can deposit to DYDX chain or whatever it's called, and long and short, and see what happens and that kind of thing. But like, I feel like that's less interesting to me than having some fun one place and being able to do that, but also being able to do other stuff with it without the need to kind of deposit and withdraw and change the security assumptions and this kind of thing that you're kind of exposed to.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is, first of all, it affects the kind of fluidity of your trades, right? You can no longer do these kind of complicated sequences of like moving from one protocol to another because you need to redeposit to a different chain all the time.
Yeah,
But yeah, I agree. But the second point, in my opinion, is also crazy. Like when you have to change your security assumptions every time you move to a different protocol, it's kind of strange. It's like,
yeah, and strange, and like for a user, it's impossible to have like a even surface level understanding of what the security assumptions are if you're using more than a few chains. Like I find it difficult to follow like a few protocols on the same chain, let alone like different chains and what they're changing and the governance and how the security is and this kind of stuff.
well, what is the market cap of DYDX now? I wonder. Let me Google that for a second because it is like a big question. So it's about a billion.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit under a billion right now.
I, I have
Interesting.
another thought which comes from like remember recently that the Bored Ape guys had that sale that they kind of set up very poorly, and then
Mm-hmm.
afterwards they said, oh, what about Ape Chain or whatever they said. And I think like from looking at like the last cycle and how kind of layer ones performed as opposed to say Uniswap and Sushi and like applications running on them. If you look at like Solana and I can't think of any others now, and Polygon and these kind of things,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot more what I would call like imagination. There's a lot more room for imagination and speculation on how it can go up, pretty much, if it's a chain rather than if it's like a protocol and a coin for a protocol or a DAO or this kind of thing.
Mm. So you say it creates this kind of illusion of a new place. This is the new place where we can do new things now.
Yeah, like in 2017, everyone was an Ethereum killer, and in 2020 and 2021, it was almost like a repeating narrative of these like layer ones like Solana and Avalanche being like the ones that will replace the position of Ethereum and make everyone that holds it rich and this kind of thing. And I think that I'm I have no idea what the market will do next, kind of bull market or whether we're in it now. I imagine that this will be kind of a repeating theme, and that some protocols, maybe DYDX, maybe the ape chain guys or whatever, maybe this is their reasoning and trying to increase like the possibilities for their themselves and community and protocol and this kind of thing.
Trying to find a new winner
Yeah.
in post Ethereum. Post Ethereum era. Speaking of which, there is this upcoming move to Ethereum 2.0. Are you like following any of that? Because they keep talking about it.
I've been following it since I got involved in crypto in early 2000, and it's been on the horizon forever, like soon, TM. But I always see it mentioned and it's being delayed, or someone's saying like a date and this kind of thing. But like from the little that I can be bothered following anymore, it's still soon, or like November or something was the last kind of date I heard floated.
Yeah, the last thing I heard about it is what the miners were not very happy with the move.
Yeah, yeah.
I wonder what will happen with that.
The miners are not happy, but I think that the gamers that get angry at the miners for driving up the prices of GPUs, maybe the gamers will be happy.
Yeah, it's kind of one or the other. Yeah, zero sum game. It's either the gamers or the miners.
Yeah, so someone's always got to be unhappy.
Okay. Do we have any questions from our audience? I wonder.
This is good.
Maybe. Yeah, we're moving to this last 15, 20 minutes, and maybe we are hogging the mics.
Absolutely.
No?
Any
Anyone?
questions, or do you have any like experience or something that you want to share with regards to like security or usability, or any thoughts on what we've discussed so far? Throw a hand up.
I see a question here in our community channel from the Beatbot in the meantime about our bridges.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and the question goes like, you talk a lot about bridges risks, and could you explain the Beam bridge design and its risks? So I will answer that in the meantime. So basically, the first implementation of the bridges that we will roll out is going to be exactly as bad as all the rest of them in terms of centralization. It's going to be a centralized bridge, like absolutely nothing interesting about it. Obviously, we will hope to take necessary protection measures, but in terms of like operational security and all kinds of mechanisms that I have described, like that will prevent situation complete draining and things like that. But in terms of the centralization, the first version is going to be centralized. We do have a much better design in our kind of plans, and it was already implemented, and we started testing it. But we still decided to roll out the first version in exactly in a centralized way, and I will explain why. So the more interesting decentralized design that we had, and we talked about it quite a lot previously, but I would like to kind of set the current situation. it works like this. You have a smart contract on each chain that is able to completely verify the state of the opposite chain. So if we talk about Beam and Ethereum, you have somebody, we call him a trustless uh, trustless party that just all it does, it moves transactions that provide the state of the chain to chain, right? So somebody sends a transaction describing the state of the Ethereum chain for specific contract to Beam and vice versa. And then the contract on the chain can verify that this information is correct based on the previous information that it has. Now, it's all well and good. However, in order to make this practical and feasible, you have to do it using an optimistic rollup. Okay, you cannot actually verify each and every transfer because it will be very, very costly, especially on Ethereum. So optimistic rollups, they always have this problem of having to either wait for a long time for somebody to say, oh, wait a minute, I just noticed it was not a correct transfer. And then there is this dispute mechanism that is engaged at this point. And then both sides have to bring the proof. And then whoever brings the correct proof wins. And the other party is basically punished by some locked funds. Otherwise, you can just dispute everything and it will never work. You have to be able to stake something on your dispute. And in most cases of optimistic rollups today, that's what happens. Like it takes a week to move assets from the layer 2 back to the original chain if it was initially committed using optimistic rollups. In addition to that, there is also an issue of enough funds. So let's say somebody wants to attack such a system and they basically commit commit funds to kind of dispute things. You need to have enough protectors with funds also for this chain. And it makes it kind of more difficult to architecture that in a way that will be reliable. And that is where we kind of, we did develop this mechanism, but we didn't have time to test it enough or to kind of organize it enough to roll it out now. So what we need to do is to roll out initially the bridge with centralized control and then keep this design for the next next version. It does not require a hard fork, I think, to roll it out. It's just some contracts. But we do have a lot of concerns, I would say, about the kind of correct operation of the system because of this need for vigilance and protection and the time it takes. So yeah, there are some very interesting trade-offs that we have faced there. So that's why we decided to have the first version centralized. I hope this answers the questions. Yeah, anyone alive? Okay, that's good.
Sorry, I was speaking to myself on mute. I was like, after I saw the Harmony hack and obviously the ones before it, it made me think, and I think I even sent a tweet out, like, what are people using bridges for, and like what's the main reason that people are moving funds over, and due to my like being as a huge influencer, no one replied. Or I think one person replied and said, "What a stupid question," and deleted it. But anyway, like I had to wonder, like, why, for the most part, are people are people bridging? And the two answers that kind of came to mind were, like, one for like trading and benefiting from like reduced fees, and the other one was like, I don't even know what to call it, like staking in farms to get like money to be called crypto money. I don't know how to. And the first one kind of made me think about like synthetics and whether or not like there's a better. I have no idea, and obviously very little understanding about the complexities and building stuff. But I wondered, like, is there a good way to benefit from using like a synthetic asset, or not? I don't know if this is even the right word, but kind of more like a synthetic asset than a wrapped asset for trading and this kind of stuff, and benefited uh, in that way. Obviously, I didn't think about it too much because I don't understand the complexities involved, but like at least from what I've seen in the Harmony hack and Ronin and a few others, like there's a lot of issues with this whole bridging thing, and wondering if there's other solutions for at least parts of why there's so much funds in the bridges themselves.
So I understand what you're saying. Like there are, let's say, if you want to trade on different chain, just that, right? I don't know, you have Ethereum, and you want to trade on Solana, and I don't know, and there is a bridge. I'm just throwing random names around, and then you think, okay, I'll bridge to this another chain and I'll trade there. Uh, it might be the case that you would be better off from the security standpoint to just go to an exchange, a centralized exchange, and trade your ETH or some of it for a native token on the other chain and then go and trade there natively, right? At least
Yep.
you will not lose 100 million when that bridge is hacked or something of the kind. Um, in case of Axie Infinity, I think it's like you have this protocol that wants to pull your liquidity in, just like we will in a short time when the bridges are out. And then obviously this protocol is doing everything they can to make it as simple for you and as kind of easy for you as a user to just move the assets to the chain through the bridge. And there is it's easy is kind of related to the beginning of our call today because everybody's using MetaMask, right? MetaMask is kind of this standard de facto almost for this crypto industry engagement, right? If you can work with MetaMask, you're there, right? And that's what you're doing. Getting some landing page, which is very, very nice and beautiful and engaging and enticing. And then the user has to just click one button and connect the wallet. And from this point, it's like very, very simple for them to use any application. Also, like explicitly like the bridge, for example, right? Um, and this is why it's easier as a process to do that instead of thinking, wait a minute, where am I bridging to? What is the security of that bridge? What is the security of the network that I'm moving to? Maybe instead of clicking this one button, I should go and sell it there and buy it there. The whole difficulty of this process makes it absolutely, infeasible. And most people just say, oh, it's okay, it's just $1,000 or $10,000 or whatever the amount of money you feel okay to lose. I will just click on that. But then you move to the other side, which is kind of once it's there, you use your tokens, and this is the wrapped tokens on the other chain. But all of this time, the original tokens are in the bridge, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So your wrapped tokens, they kind of you're still at risk from the bridge all of this time that you are on the other chain. And in order to get rid of that risk, you need to move all the way back. Just like you never delete your emails from Google, right? Because it's infinite space. Who cares, right? So you keep all of your emails forever. Exactly for the same reason, people just ignore it. It's there, but it's not there. It's in the bridge, right? It's vulnerable all the time in a way, or more vulnerable. It's not self custody anymore in many cases.
Yeah. You're not only relying like on the security assumptions of the chain that you're using, but also on the security like of the bridge or of the
Yeah, and
sure and
there
this
is
kind
no
of
in my opinion, there is absolutely no way you can know how actually secure this bridge is because it's true for everyone. It will be true for us in a way. Because, okay, so they tell you that they have, I don't know, 3 out of 7 multisig, right?
yeah.
But what about it? Who are these people, right? It's very difficult to assess the security of that system.
Yeah, and how did they set up the multi-sig and this kind of thing? We have a question coming in from President Rusky. Before I say that, because I kind of like fudded bridges and this kind of stuff, the situation currently reminds me of like centralized exchanges in 2018, and that many of them were getting hacked like all the time. Once the bear market started, it was like all of the exchanges, bar like a few, got hacked, and this time around, it's like happening maybe to a lesser extent, but with DeFi applications and also bridges, and maybe it's a part of like a, how to call it, like a growing pain, like, and by the time in 1 or 2 years bridges will be far more, have
Yes,
far better architecture and this kind of stuff.
yes, they definitely will be. I totally agree. And also, all of these kind of architecture will get more mature, and it will mean that we will have, for example, we will have some kind of insurance on your movements, like like just like in many cases, like on average, nothing happens, but if something happens, you will be compensated and you will pay a small premium for the ability to use your funds faster. And there are already solutions that we see here and there that coming up. Some of them, work well in bull markets. There was a piece of news this week about Bancor closing their impermanent loss protection, or the kind of limiting it severely because of all the recent events.
Right.
Yeah, and but definitely bridges will become, like, centralized bridges will become more stable. Like there is no other way around it. Yeah, just like centralized exchanges back in the day.
Absolutely. And
Totally agree.
like one massive testament, which is kind of similar to a bridge, is like the WBTC on Ethereum, and how that's handled, and kind of, I touch wood now that I've said it, but like this has been pretty solid, and in terms of a wrapped asset has never had any issues, at least that I'm aware of.
Yeah, take for example Chainlink, right, which is the kind of most used provider of Oracle data. They have, like, they take a lot of efforts to protect their oracles, and they know that this is, it's essential for them. This is what they're all about kind of having this, infrastructure which is operated correctly, which is protected correctly. And we see this in the new, like, not new, but more kind of larger exchanges, and the amount of mechanisms and precautions they take to avoid these early issues, I would say. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
But still, I think people should be better educated about self custody and about, like, the amount of risk they're taking in different situations.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Dirty Rusky, what's up? Oh no, he's
Oh
gone.
yeah,
You
sorry.
there?
Not about the wrapped assets.
I don't see anyone. Is he still in
I
the room with you?
Yeah, he's still there, but I didn't catch it.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay.
Can hear you now.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't hear anyone. What are you talking to?
Really? Oh no, he's gone now though. I could hear him, but he's vanished.
Okay. I think Twitter Spaces on us.
Yeah.
In any case, we're closing on the hour.
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone has any more questions or anything, in fact, we have one request. Oh, Dirty Rusky is back. He's coming in.
Okay. Because I can't even see him in the room right now.
This is weird, right? When, like, if you join a space, you can see some of the people listening and whatever. It
Oh,
says connecting, but
I actually didn't know that. I thought I was seeing everyone, but probably not.
in the interim, if anyone has any questions or wants to share anything, yell out, as we will wrap up soon. I don't know, he's using, I just got a message here from Amir. He's using a potato as a modem. That explains it. No, I think like of all the Twitter spaces that I've joined and listened into and the ones that were posted, they do have like some, I don't know if you call them bugs or whatever, but there's always some issues and it's a little bit difficult to make
I will
it
mention
smooth.
one more thing that I have retweeted, and I'll find it. It's an amazing thread and great article about how in China they use data like kind of all the surveillance data to try to predict crimes, like just like in the Minority Report. I think it's an interesting subject for a different day, but just in case you missed it, it's a really, really interesting information. They basically monitor people and they kind of try to use their behavior to predict what they're doing. Like if you are a known drug user and you go to the train station, but you don't take a train, maybe you're selling on like drugs in the train station, stuff like that. It's absolutely crazy.
It's spooky stuff, right?
Absolutely, absolutely spooky.
And like of all the places, I mean, I say all the places, of the places that I've been like in the world, China, I would say, has like the most kind of CCTV of anywhere. Like I remember the corner that I used to live on that I would park my motorbike outside of, and I had a motorbike that had very conveniently fake license, fake like registration, and fake number plates. there was about five CCTV cameras on this one like back alley street that were all facing different directions and this kind of stuff. And this was a few years ago now, but I always think like, I mean, it would be hard to to like get in trouble and given what I was doing.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like in Israel, also, like every tiny store you go into some, I don't know, not even something, just a store in the mall, and you look up and you see like the entire ceiling is in cameras and they're looking everywhere. Like, why do you need so many cameras? You just sell stupid, I don't know what, cell phone cases.
And this is what always surprises me about about when like it's some crime happens or like some
Nobody saw anything.
Yeah, no one saw anything, or there's like a video of it happening, and then it's like no one has been found. If you saw anything, let us know. It's like you have cameras everywhere. Can't you just kind of like follow them from one camera
because it's
to
a
the
lot
other?
of work. It's a lot of work. You need to go to the store and take There was a funny story in Israel some years ago that somebody had his motorcycle or something stolen from an underground parking, and he went to the parking, management, and he took the video and he brought it to the police and said, "Look, this is the scene of the crime, and you can see that somebody steals my bike." And the police said to him, "Oh, it's so dark, we can hardly see like anything." And he said, "Can't you like enhance it or something?" And they said, "What are we, like CSI Miami? Like what are you talking about?"
Yeah.
And that's about was the end of it. I hope he had insurance.
Yeah. I
Nobody
sometimes
cares.
wonder. I sometimes wonder about like the amount of money that the government's spending on all of this to achieve very mediocre results at best.
It's all about incentives and motivation, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's been great, like always.
Absolutely.
And next week, we will be traveling, so we will miss you for one.
This is true. I will not be here next week, but I will be here the week after.
Amazing. So have great and safe travels, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. And we will be there, obviously, next time. Same date, same day, like same day of week. And
Same
thank you
day.
very
Oh,
much. Yeah.
absolutely. Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Bye bye.